How are you guys? Thanks for joining me. What I'm looking to do with this short presentation today, I say short, it'll be about 20 minutes. But what I'm looking to do is just give you a really fundamental understanding of training. Over the past couple of years, we've obviously helped people get some really good results through using training intelligently. The biggest mistakes that I see is that people way either overdo or underdo the training. So what we're looking at today and what the main discussion is going to be is about balancing the work with the recovery, making sure that you can train extremely well and efficiently and recover well from it. Now, obviously, there is going to be individual differences in terms of lifestyle, in terms of times that we can actually train, in terms of training background, how much experience you've got, and what your goals are. So there's going to be a lot of differences person to person. But let's get into it and let's try and cover the basics. If you've got any questions throughout, just fire me an email, josh@fitness-experience.co.uk, and I'll do my best to get back to you with an answer. But it may be answered in one of the other episodes that we're doing as well. So just bear that in mind. Now, big point is training always has a cost. It always has a downside. There is always energy used. There's always stress on your body, stress on your joints. There's always a level of fatigue that's built up. Now, there is not always going to be enough of a stimulus to promote an adaptation. So there's not always going to be a benefit. Now, that can be affected by how fatigued you are when you start training. It can be the recovery afterwards. But really important to understand is that every time we decide that we're going to train, there is a negative effect. And unless we do it intelligently, that positive effect isn't going to outweigh that. So this is where the program design and this is where the considered training sessions comes in. Why are you here? So what we're going to cover today is the types of training, key points for different types of cardio training and how we track them sessions, key points for different resistance training and how we track them sessions, introduction to mechanics, progression and adaptation, and then recovery and injuries. Now, we're not going to cover fat loss directly, but you will start to understand where it fits into this. And plus, it's covered in the nutrition webinar that we're doing soon after. So think back to your goal setting. What is it that you want to achieve? Now, when we look at training, your body's got a limited ability to recover from any area of training. So if you're doing a lot of cardio work, it's going to have an impact on other areas. If you're using a lot of energy, you're doing a lot of weightlifting, it's potentially going to have an impact if you've got less energy for your cardio. Now, there's better and worse ways to balance this. For example, strength training, providing that you can balance the energy and the recovery, won't necessarily have a negative impact on cardio training. But the opposite's not true. Doing a lot of cardio training will start to have a negative impact on strength training. So for us, this is really important to understand what your goals are so that we can structure your training based around your time that you've got available and what the key priority is for that training phase, and make sure that we fit that in. It's not a case of just sort of do a little bit of everything and you'll adapt. Yes, initially we'll get some sort of training response, but that's not going to be optimum, and it's going to lead to a lot of wasted time, probably a lot of unnecessary injuries. So yeah, this is why we spend so much time trying to consider it. Now, the types of training, obviously, we've got cardio training, we've got resistance training. But what we need to look at through all of them is what's the goal of that training session. Now, cardio's got its own types of training, or sort of subsections, long steady state, threshold training, loads of types of interval training. Same for resistance work in terms of we've got bodybuilding type lifting, we've got weightlifting, powerlifting, athletic performance, wellness. I suppose with resistance training, you put calisthenics and you can potentially put yoga and things like that in there. So they're all completely different subsections built into cardio or resistance training. And again, they're going to have a different impact on your body. If we look at types of cardio, steady state, what I'd consider this to be will be keeping yourself at a low enough intensity so that you can recover well from it, so that it's not going to have huge energy costs beyond that of the actual training session. Keep it under threshold pace. We use the MyZone system for the guys that use MyZone, that's probably going to fall somewhere between 80 and 90% for you. Keep under that. So you're probably looking at spending most of your time for this steady state work in the green zone, doing it for slightly longer durations. Threshold training is the sort of yellow to red zone, somewhere in there where it might be, for example, a fast 5K or a fast 10K. Be really pushing. You might be just beyond your threshold there. But again, there's ways to do it. There's ways to boost that threshold, to develop it. And that's one of the key things that we try and develop, for example, for people looking to improve the running. We'll look to boost the lactate threshold. And then there's interval training, which we tend to put in to boost VO2 max, real top end stuff, really high intensities. Now, obviously that's a spectrum. So a 20-minute interval with 10 minutes rest between is not going to be the same as a 10-second interval with a minute and a half rest between. They have completely different adaptations. So it's just understanding this. Now, I think the main thing that we need to understand is that the stress on your body through every training session that you do here is different. You guys don't need to know exactly what it is, but you need to appreciate the fact that a cardio session is not a cardio session. There's these types of training, they all come in at different areas and they all have different goals. Now, obviously, it's really important to understand what the demand of that work is. For example, steady state, if we're considering that as being a brisk walk for 2 hours, the actual demand on your system, providing it's something that you're fairly used to doing, isn't going to be that high. You should be all right. You shouldn't have many interfering effects. If you do a maximum effort 10K run and you're not particularly used to running, that's going to have a much, much bigger recovery demand. And same if you do 10 lots of 1 kilometre as fast as you can, that's going to have an even bigger recovery demand and it's going to take longer. So making sure that we understand this and balance this and understand what adaptations we want from each session is really important. I will state now that cardio in general, and I'll say beyond that, that is necessary for just good health, because we do need to be sort of making sure that we are working our body into a range where it's going through different heart rates. But cardio in general is not essential for fat loss. You want to be active, you want to be moving, but structured cardio training doesn't need to make up a high percentage of your of any fat loss plans. It may do, but it's not essential. Now, when we track these sessions, we can look at heart rate, we can look at distance over time, we can look at RPE, and we can look at other measures like a VDOT system, which is basically a pace system. Now, all have pros and cons. The best way, realistically, for you guys is don't take any of them as gospel and pick and choose. Use a combination of different types. So you might look at heart rate and RPE and know what distance you've covered. If you've got that on a run, then that's going to be much, much more helpful than just knowing your heart rate. Because with just your heart rate, we don't know what distance you've covered. Just knowing your distance, because we don't know what intensity that's got on your body. And just knowing your RPE, because again, even if we know your RPE and distance, we don't necessarily know how fast you've gone. We don't know how stressful that was realistically on your body. We do have an idea, but RPE can be quite subjective sometimes as well. So learning to use a couple of different measures gives us a lot more information to be able to help you guys get the most out of your training. Last point on this is that if we advise that you go lower intensity, there's reasons for that. So doing more and more and more is absolutely not always better and can often lead to limiting your results much, much sooner than you'd need to. Resistance training, muscle building, we've got strength work, we've got wellness, athletic focus, sport-specific focus, all completely different. We're looking at different sets, different rep ranges, different ways of executing the movement. So, you know, I see people saying, oh, this is right, this is wrong. It's all absolutely got to be considered in context of what your goals are. So again, for muscle building, we're probably looking for the heavier sets, maybe 6 to 10 reps. For the lighter sets, really focusing on that contraction, really focusing on the movement, maybe anything above 12 up to 20-ish. You may go a few more, but it's unlikely that if you get your weight right, that you'd be able to get more than 20 reps on any of your sets. Again, strength training, a little bit more regimented, probably looking 3 to 5 sets of 2 to 7 have put, but generally 3 to 5 reps. Rest times are going to be longer because we're trying to work at them higher intensities. We're trying to create a stimulus that's going to optimize that movement pattern and optimize the strength development, not necessarily the muscle development. Wellness focus is some people just want to move well. Some people, there is a level of strength that we need to get by. So when we look at daily tasks that you're doing, we put in specific training to help with that. Athletic focus, just a general athleticism. Again, it's a different way of looking at it. Sports specific, if there's certain turns, certain jumps, certain landings that you need to do, we need to consider that. So again, all massively different. So just weight training in general, it's not that simple. Now, when we look at strength training, do we want to be efficient with our lifting? What's the goal? So if the goal is to shift the most weight that you possibly can shift, yes, we want to be really efficient. We want that movement to be least stressful that it can possibly be on our body and use the least energy. If the goal is to build as much muscle as you can in a certain area, then we want to be as limited with our efficiency as possible. We want to really target one area, one muscle group, pretty much take everything else out of the equation and make sure that that muscle, regardless of weight, is getting the maximum level of work. Completely different approaches. But obviously, it's going to be using good lifting technique. Again, that's completely in context. One thing that we do need to be aware of when planning resistance training is that the difficulty is going to go up and up and up. You have to, what I'd suggest is that we start fairly steady, but what we have to see is progression through that program. So your session is not going to be the same week on week. We can increase the sets, the reps, the intensity of the types of lift. The movements might change, might get more difficult, but we need to have progression going through. And then with that progression, for adaptation to actually take place, we need to make sure that we have enough recovery time. Short term, that's your rest days in between, and even your rest times in between sets. And longer term, that's your weeks that you have where you focus on deloading and focus on recovering. Now, that may not be planned in. For some of you, that might be holiday, it might be time off, it might be time where you just know that you're not going to get in the gym as much. So we focus on keeping nutrition reasonable and see it as a deload. Let your structures recover, let your body reduce that fatigue, and then go again. And that's really some of the key points to progressing. Too much too fast absolutely can be an issue. So look at it like a blister. If you change your shoes, you get them rubbing in a certain point. If it's straight away you go all in, that is going to cause a blister. It's going to cause damage on the surface. Now, see training as doing basically that to tendons. Now, if you go all in straight away, that's going to cause damage in them tendons. Now, if you lift, you'll see your hands, you'll probably get calluses in here, but they don't blister. The skin adapts to that because it's gradually overloading it. You want to do the same thing with all of your movements so that your structures, your tendons, your muscles can get used to that and adapt without overdoing it. And obviously, when we're talking about recovery, sleep, nutrition, stress, all absolutely essential factors. And then beyond that, we can look at recovery methods, cryotherapy, massage, different things that you guys might want to put in. When we're tracking resistance training sessions, the questions that I get all the time, how many reps should I be doing? What weight should I be using on this? That completely depends on what the program is. What we want is people to track as much as possible in the gym using our app. If you prefer to write it down and then chuck it onto the app after, we're absolutely fine with that. But obviously, make sure that you get the stats in there so that you can see what you've done. %1RM is a percentage of the maximum weight that you could lift for one. So in powerlifting programs, we might use this quite a lot, or in athletic performance programs. But for general muscle building programs, it's not going to be used as much except in your bigger lifts. But an example would be if you're doing 85% 1RM, your 1RM, the heaviest weight you can lift for one is 100 kilos, and the 85% is 85 kilos. Number rep max is a little bit different because what this is we might put 10 reps at 10 RM. That means that it's 10 reps at the heaviest weight that you can manage 10 good reps for. If it's 8 reps at 10 RM, you should have a little bit left in the tank at the end of that set. So this is something that we use quite a lot. And the other methods are very comparable to this. Set rate of perceived exertion, the exact same as with cardio. Now, if you've not used this much, I'd suggest speak to your trainer and we'll try to get you used to it, because it can be a really useful tool, but it does take a little bit of learning and it's very subjective. It is based on how you're feeling on the day. That's great because it gives us feedback of you on that day, but obviously there's limitations to that. And very similar to the percent number rep max is reps in reserve. If you are 1 to 2 RIR, then you've got 1 or 2 more reps that you could have managed in that set. When it's written in your programs, you may see some of these, so understanding it is really key. Now, form is absolutely crucial, but do not expect to adapt if you're not putting the effort in as well. You need the combination. It needs to be, form needs to be good, but your mechanics also, your effort level also needs to be really good. You need to be pushing, because that is what's going to create the stimulus for your body to adapt. Now, form will be different dependent on you, your body shape, the goal of the exercise, what you're comfortable with. The example I've given here is a squat. There will be a lot of different squat setups based on individual size, based on whether we want to make that exercise efficient or inefficient. So there's certain things that are wrong when people do bad squats in terms of, poor control of posture, things like that. However, even things such as quarter squats may be completely appropriate at that point in the program. So context is absolutely everything. Why are we doing it? And then the other example I've given is a bicep curl. Now, simply because it's quite a common one that people struggle with. A barbell bicep curl may be optimum for some people, but if you can't get into that position just because individually you can't rotate your hands out that much, it'll start to put more stress on your wrist. You won't be able to manage as much load on it. There'll be more stress through each of your joints. So it's not worth doing. So we then replace that with a dumbbell. So one person's barbell bicep curl might be someone else's dumbbell curl. Again, in context, it doesn't really matter, but it's just understanding what we're trying to achieve. So build an understanding of the goal of the exercise. Now, progression and adaptation. As we mentioned earlier, as we get fitter, we need to do more to adapt to it. The progression is week on week. Are we doing a little bit more? Are we pushing ourselves so that it's having to work that little bit harder, a little bit harder? And the flip side of it, the adaptation, is that we need time to actually adapt. So when we're in the gym, we get weaker throughout the session. Fatigue starts to build up. We start to get tired. When we then leave, we'll go and eat, sleep. That's when we're starting to adapt. Important to remember that most plans do not give opportunity to fully adapt to that training session. And the thing that causes a big adaptation is the build-up of these stresses. So we get somewhere near recovered and train again. Somewhere near recovered and train again. But if we're doing that, we need to make sure that at the end of the training block, there's a little bit of time that you have off, or you have lighter weeks, your deload weeks that we spoke about, to make sure that that adaptation then takes place. Then when you get back into the gym, you're stronger, you're fitter, you might have more muscle mass, dependent on your goals. And this applies to both weight training and cardio training. So really important to bear in mind. The big mistake that people make is trying to outwork a bad diet, or, live a really high stress life and then trying to just do more and more to try and compensate for that level of stress. Fundamentally, it doesn't work because it doesn't allow this recovery to take place. And what actually happens is that the energy gets so low when you're starting your training. You may be wired, you may be taking some sort of pre-workout supplements and things, but the energy when you're starting your training just isn't there to give you a good session. Your focus isn't there. The session's not as high quality as it could otherwise be. So obviously, in that case, that's where we start to get negative effects rather than positive effects from training. Now, guys, we're limited to how much we can progress in a given time. So we're looking at doing everything we can to optimize this, but it's not a case of more is better. Again, if we're looking to optimize it, recovery is going to be an absolutely key factor. So, getting enough sleep, having a solid nutrition plan in place, take time to, de-stress. Our life's stressful at the minute, guys. We have extremely busy schedules. So just give yourself a little bit of time for you, maybe try meditation, try something that is going to be enjoyable for you, but something that's also going to help you start to switch off, start to relax. And then once you're doing all these basics of de-stress, sleep, and get your nutrition right, then we can look at other methods, people like acupuncture, yoga, different types. Again, yoga can help de-stress, but different types of massage, different therapies that will help just in terms of that additional recovery. You might use a game ready, you might use compression garments, whichever method works best for you, but make sure that the sleep, nutrition, and de-stressing are your 3 key priorities when it comes to that. Guys, again, all training is about balancing stimulus and recovery, making sure that we get it right. We're limited to how much we can recover. And obviously, how much stimulus we can adapt to is also limited. We can't just do more and expect to adapt more. So making sure that we try and optimize all these factors is crucial. I know that this has taken a little bit of time out of your day. Thanks for watching. But hopefully it just gives that overview of there are some complexities to this that we're trying to manage through training. So don't take the approach of more is better. Sometimes more is better. Sometimes it's not. It's about understanding what we're trying to get out of it and what we do. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy. Hope you enjoy your journey going forward.